Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Spunkify here on behalf of MMOBomb.com, coming back at you at PAX East here in Boston. Today we're talking with John, the studio manager at Paradox North. John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really great, thank you. I mean, we're so excited to be here at PAX, so yeah.
Great. Now we're talking a little bit about Magicka Wizard Wars, of course the newest entry in the franchise, this one free to play. Can you tell us a little bit about why you chose to go with free to play for this one, and sort of what were your goals with Magicka Wizard Wars versus the previous game in the series?
The most important part for us was not really to make a free-to-play game. It just came naturally with the nature of the game being an action PvP title. We really wanted to make sure that it became available to as many people as possible. And making it free-to-play just felt like, hey, it's about competition, it's about having fun, and how do we, create fun for as many people as possible. Looking at the different robes, the wizards, everything, it just makes sense to, like, hey, here's the basic wizard. Start playing, and then if you want to play as a cooler wizard, please feel free to support us in a way that feels okay for you.
Now, the original series were all, of course, all about casting spells and using different elements to make your own unique spells. That element is carried over, of course, into Wizard Wars. Can you tell us a little bit about anything that you've added new that's specific or unique to Wizard Wars?
I think a huge improvement that we made was the movement system. You're able to move and spellcast at the same time, which adds to the tempo of the game and also a much more twitchy kind of gameplay. So the action has increased that way. We also slightly modified the amount of spells at hand. It's a bit fewer spells to choose from, but each spell now makes a big difference. So if you go down the lightning route, that's going to give you a clear advantage in some areas, but it also makes you vulnerable in other areas. So stuff like that, like small tweaks that make it a more dedicated PvP experience rather than a story-driven co-op experience.
Now, the game is currently in alpha. In early access, players can purchase a key or purchase access or get a key randomly to gain access. The game, of course, will be completely free to play when it releases. Can you talk a little bit about sort of like the development process, what you guys are moving towards, any new modes that you're going to be adding? I believe the only mode that I saw when I initially played it was the sort of like capture and hold where you capture certain points on the map. What's sort of your end goal? What are you sort of working towards developing for the game?
The end goal is to keep updating the game. The development process is basically have a major patch or update every other week. And when it comes to game mode, just the other week we added support for game mode selection. So we now have 2 game modes available all the time. So we have the dual game mode, which is the newer game mode where you go head to head. So you just one-on-one action. So we're super excited to see if people enjoy that as much as they did when we just released it for a couple of weeks to kind of get the initial feedback. We've also added a dedicated training ground, so if you're alone and you feel like improving your skills without the heat from other players, you can just go into the training ground and try out your skills on our training dummy, which we've dubbed Timmy, because made of tin and a few other aspects. Just like go all in on a training dummy and then bring that skill onto one of the 2 game modes that are out now.
Now, Wizard Wars, or Magicka rather, has always been about having all your access to all your spells initially, being able to just creatively find out what works for you, what doesn't work for your playstyle. With Wizard Wars, is there any sort of progression in terms of, since it's free to play, is there any sort of gating with spells, or how do you actually progress in Wizard Wars versus the original Magicka?
Yeah, it was super important for us to keep the level playing field, so everyone has access to all spells at any given point in time. The progression is more about improving your skill, getting matchmake against similar skilled players, and as you progress you will also gain access to more advanced type of ropes and weapons, kind of the bragging factor, if you will, and they all each come with a more a deeper skilled towards a single element, and also just as much disadvantage with another element. So it's kind of about getting skilled within the spell area that you want to be good at. That's kind of the progression. That's where you become the master of the game.
What have been some unique challenges with Wizard Wars versus original Magicka? Because in the original Magicka, you could kill your friends, but unless I guess your goal was to kill your friends intentionally, it wasn't the primary sort of aspect of the game. Since this is more PvP focused, have you had any special unique struggles with balancing out the spells in that regard?
Not really. I mean, obviously, you could, in the first game, there were a couple of spell combinations that were so overpowered that if you just learned 5 combinations, you could win any PvP battle. So definitely, we've made sure that there is no like insta-win present in the spell system. And we also made sure that when you go 4-on-4, that crazy fun factor of sometimes tactically putting your friends on fire, that's still there. We thought about it being potentially a balancing problem in a PvP environment, but so far we haven't seen a lot of team killing. We have some telemetry on the backside, so we can see that it's not a big issue, but should we start seeing other values coming out of the alpha period, we have a few design tweaks we could make as well, like adding some kind of, we don't like to punish our players for being experimental and kind of going all in, but we could do a couple of changes that kind of puts in some kind of system that makes you not intentionally being an ass in the game, because that's super important to us. It's all about being friendly. Even if it's friendly fire, it's still like being in a friendly way. That's important.
That's great to hear. Now, you talked about moving out of alpha. Do you have any plans or any knowledge of when you're going to move towards like a closed beta, open beta environment?
Yes, the next step for us is definitely an open beta. And the team, we aim at doing this before the summer.
So it'll move, just to be clarified, it'll move from alpha like it is now to open beta directly?
Yes, that's correct. We will do I mean, it's all about labels, really. We could probably call something a closed beta if we turn on payments or something like that. So, but we don't look at it that way. We just look at it, oh, so when are we going to make it available to anyone to download and play? And that's what we see being the next step. But it will happen a lot of things every other week for the coming few months, and then hopefully we're ready.
Well, I really appreciate you telling me more about Magicka Wizard Wars. I'm really excited to see what the future holds. I was a big fan of the original and glad to have that PvP element there. Really quickly, is there any sort of like esports or any sort of like competitive side of Wizard Wars that you're aiming for?
I think there is. We're not gonna shove something down the throats of our players. It's gonna be up to them if they want to make this an esport or not. We try to provide the tools, so dual mode is one of those tools as we see it. It's a game mode where you show off your skill one-on-one. We've looked a lot at fighting games, so one of the things that we've changed is the HUD. It becomes a lot more, or the GUI, it shows really that one-on-one, the power bars and the kind of health bars is really apparent. And I see a lot of potential in hosting tournaments with that game mode. But in the end, we're going to try and provide the tools, and if the community responds and say, hey, I want to host this in this tournament, we're going to help them 100%, 110%. But I don't see us hosting the $1 million contest at this point. If the community helps us and if the community pushes us in that direction, I mean, a dream would definitely be 3 years from now to be hosting a $1 million tournament, for sure.
Okay, so final question here, a little bit of fluff. What's your favorite spell combination?
My favorite spell combination, because I'm a kind of a simple person, is Earth, Earth, Earth. I run around a lot and just throw projectiles at people with a lightning shield. Yeah.
Well, John, I really appreciate you coming out here and telling us more about Wizard Wars. For those of you here in MMOBomb, if you guys want to find out more about the game, you guys can check out our full coverage on MMOBomb.com and look for the open beta sometime before the summer. Until next time, guys, we'll see you later. Spunkify out. Later, guys.